allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody, for joining us for the special council meeting, City of Credit River. First off, we'll start with approving or amending the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda anybody'd like to make tonight?
No changes. I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion to approve by Brent,
I'll second it.
second by Leroy. A motion and a second to approve the agenda as noted, as written. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Anybody like to speak in open forum tonight? Okay. If you don't mind turning the microphone on there when you get up there. Square button in the middle there, just hold it down for a few seconds. There you go.
All right, Ron Sack at 19300 Highway. I'm president of a homeowner association, that's why I'm stuck coming to these meetings. And one of the requests we had at our meeting this past Thursday was to ask the council to review the stop signs that we put on Overland Drive. We put in a three-way stop signs. It really makes no sense for Overland Drive to have stop signs. We did it because people were speeding at the time of road construction, but no one's stopping. Okay. When it's snowy and you're going up the hill,
It's a bad place to stop.
it's a bad place to stop. You can't get any traction. And C, coming down the hill, you're skidding, making the snow covered road ice. So my suggestion would be to place keep the stop sign on Highway, but put slow on Overland.
We could do
Maybe
a yield,
blind child at play.
no, yield sign we could put up.
That's what was there originally. When we
Yeah.
did the sign replacement the last time, we consolidated and put all the signs to the new state standards.
But I
The new
brought
engineering
up,
standards, and that was a yield on Heidel and nothing on Overland. And almost immediately, Ron, you were standing here telling us you need a stop sign there.
and I think I brought up, Ron, that there weren't any flat spots to stop there
Yeah.
to get,
Correct.
so anyhow.
So if you change something, we would need to put on Idle Way. Cross traffic does not stop.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Brent.
I remember that meeting because we were following what the engineer said the guidelines were for signage at Overland and Heidel. And Shane suggested against doing the stop signs. And a couple of us said, well, okay, but the residents really want the stop signs. And we're not going to follow the rules. But we're going to put the stop signs in because we had a lot of people here wanting the stop signs. And if we take them out, I mean, we were being responsive to the wants and needs of the residents at that time.
I agree, you
Yeah.
were,
Yes.
but
And I think even not following what the standards were for signage, we said, well, if it makes sense, and if what would it hurt to put in a couple of stop signs? And we know that the traffic drives like crazy. Leroy, remember we were doing the roll test, and
Yeah.
people were whipping by us with safety vests on, and yeah, it's crazy. So if it slows traffic down or people have to stop, I don't know.
Well, I think what we can do is, and we're not going to change the signage now.
No,
It's a summer thing. Why don't we, Mark, if you want to take a note and let's pass it on to Shane for engineering review of what the proper signage for the engineering manuals are. And we will review it from there on.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Anybody else for open forum tonight? All right, we will close open forum and move into general business. In general business, we have one item that would be to approve information and authorize advertisement for the Credit River City Administrator vacancy. Mark, do you want to introduce that?
I can certainly do that, Mr. Mayor. You'll recall that in December, you hired David Drown and Associates DDA to do recruitment for the permanent city administrator position. And Liza Donabauer is the person that has been assigned to Credit River. She's met with each of you and has reviewed and has talked with staff and has presented a couple of items that I know she would like to have you look at tonight. I do have printed copies if anybody needs those to look at. So otherwise, Donna.
Liza.
Yes.
Good evening, Liza.
Good evening, Mayor Costick, members of the council. I'm happy to be here with you as we move inch by inch toward getting your next or your first time ever official city administrator, not discounting the interim work that we have been receiving here. So as he had mentioned, I had an opportunity to spend time in Credit River, met with each of the council members, staff, spoke with contracted staff as well, just to get a really good feel for the community, the organization and the position itself. And so you'll see in the community and position profile, that's a result of that. Now I come with my pen as promised. I make changes live as you see changes are needed to be fit. I want to make sure that this is an accurate portrayal of the community and the organization. I'll make the changes tonight and then tomorrow we will move forward in advertising. So the changes we make tonight will be made and released tomorrow.
Brent, do you have a copy?
I've got it
You got it on
on.
your computer?
Yeah,
Okay.
got electronic.
All right.
Now I did receive proposed changes from Mayor Costick and interim city administrator McNeil. I can kind of review just a quick summary of those.
One more. Oh,
That's fine.
sorry, Dominique.
So if we want to walk through page by page, we can certainly do that. Or if you'd rather just pepper me with comments, I'd be happy with that as well.
Well, I think we can just go ahead with comments and probably the easiest way.
Right. Okay,
Anybody, go ahead.
Yeah, I read through it earlier and
Mhm.
I was actually kind of fascinated by actually reading some of it was really nice. I think I kind of like to get back on at some point where we're looking at salary expectations versus the actual work that we're actually asking to do. Because I still kind of think that what we're offering is kind of city administrator light in some ways. There's a lot of things that they're typically not doing. However, we are asking for a lot more in kind of setting up our city. So just kind of, I just wanted to have a little more discussion about, whether we're asking for salary range, et cetera, the compensation that we're offering versus what the expectation is.
you bet. Well, let's focus on the profile, then we'll talk about the job description, then we'll talk about salary and then the search schedule.
Well, I mean, those are my comments.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved your opening, really did.
Okay, I got a couple comments. On the first page in the description piece, I think that in the one section here, it talks about, I want to find that exact sentence here. The northern half of the community is being developed out with larger lots and higher density. I think that's backwards. That should be smaller lots and higher density because then the southern half is the rural residential large lots.
Yeah, it'd be smaller lots and higher density.
Mhm.
And the south half is quite rural with large lots.
Wonderful.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who like the northern half to be developed with larger lots.
All right, so I made.
But the
change.
current.
Yeah.
Designation from that
Right.
council and the current designation in the
Urban
comp plan
expansion, et
is
cetera.
exactly.
Yeah.
So to be accurate,
You bet. And that same sentence, I received another comment just correcting perhaps the description, the north half should actually be changed to the northern 1/3 of the community.
yeah, because it really kind of is. Yeah, it's not half.
Wonderful. And then when we talk about the southern half, then I'll just refer to it as the remainder of the city again, based on a comment received.
Mhm.
Sense.
Wonderful.
And I think that Liza would be important to say rural residential.
And is that, are you talking about the north?
The
or
southern
south?
half,
Okay.
southern 2/3, yes.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. Um,
Mr. Mayor.
yeah,
So one of the things, I don't have the answer, but as we're trying to attract someone to Credit River, as I read this, it's very factual,
Mhm,
which is good,
mhm.
but how do we, who's our prospective person? Is it someone coming from rural? Or is it someone coming from the city? And regardless of which one, how do we attract them to Credit River? So I just go back to why I came to Credit River. And, you know, it was that feel of I'm close, but not in,
Mhm.
right? And
mhm.
I know we have very factual, but is there something that we can throw in there to state, you know, how the residents appreciate the closeness to the metro, and yet still having that rural feel?
That's
I think we
It's in
covered
the-
the closest, right? In that first paragraph, babe, if you read that, you know, talking about 25 miles south of downtown
Yeah.
Minneapolis,
It's
16 miles from the,
Right,
yeah,
I guess I'm thinking of, if I read that, it's, oh, okay, it's 24 square miles and it's 25 minutes to this.
I think
You know, what is it about the area that's attractive then?
Mhm.
Just my thoughts. Again, I don't have the answer. I'm just throwing that out there.
I would ask Mark, what kind of information does a city administrator want to know? I mean, you deal in a lot of facts and you say, oh, 25 miles from here, that, I mean. We could, I know we could say something about Credit River, but I'm not sure what we would say.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, those are valid questions. You have a valid point. I mean, certainly a candidate is not looking to read a novel. It's
Mhm.
something that's going to have facts in that sort of situation. And it's going to be it's going to talk about the things that that particular person is going to be interested in. Is this a good fit for me at this stage of my career? On that, I mean, I think, you know, every city that's out there thinks that theirs is the greatest and we're unique and all that. But the reality is, I mean, it's a place to live, sometimes a place to work. It's going to be of interest to folks knowing, you know, is housing available? For that, they'll look at salary and factual things like that. But I think what Liza has done is come up with a nice balance of some of the intangibles versus the factual things that will be the thing that kind of puts that in my I'm still interested pile, or no, I'm not. So
Mhm.
one other suggestion or question I had on the first page,
Yeah.
it talks about the city's organized National Night Out event. And I was here in August, but I'm not sure. I wasn't part of that. And if I've missed it, that's fine. I just know there are other cities that organize these and they have someone from the police or fire department that will put together, you know, 70 block parties. Are these neighborhood parties or is the city actually involved with?
No, it's neighborhood parties and under the, you know, the county sheriff kind of organizes as far as registration goes and then, you know, the sheriff visits and if you can request a fire department and.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But Mr. Mayor, isn't National Night Out, I mean, I don't, in Scott County, they call it
1990, that's right,
Yeah.
yeah,
National Night Out is, I think,
A different,
copyrighted, yeah,
yeah,
so we probably
we
want to
probably change that
that.
terminology.
And I know that's branded as Night to Unite, that's a copyright sort of thing. I'm wondering if there's another way that we can say the same thing. The city's organized. I don't want to say crime prevention, social
Activities.
then we're talking about, we've got a low crime rate.
Public safety appreciation event.
Yeah,
I like, yeah.
that'll work. Okay. Anybody have any comments on the history section?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I have one and I've only myself to blame since I sort of put it together. But as I looked at it again, the third paragraph from the bottom, it talks about I-35 allows for quick access to the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So I look at, that's not really history. That probably should be on the first page, talking about the location and why it's attractive that way. Otherwise, I took a lot of that from the letter, which I think you penned for the time capsule,
time capsule,
sort of thing. So we
yeah.
had good factual information there. I also noticed that if you look at the first picture and the third picture, they were taken at the same time. Those are the same cars. I'm wondering if we could substitute one or just maybe go with 4.
So first, I think let's address the highway thing. I think that actually what you wrote actually makes sense to the history part. Because of the development of County Road 21 to the highway, which happened in the 2000s, which you talked about in that paragraph.
That really did increase the.
Absolutely.
How about
Now there's
Texas
what,
being
30,000 cars a day
Yeah.
drive along
that-
County Road
that really
21.
did
So yeah.
change.
So that it really, I mean,
That.
that happened in the early 2000s. So it really,
No, actually, that was.
so it had, the first was built through in 2000.
That was
Was when it-
90s. No,
2000 was when it first came through. They rebuilt it again in 2003, I think. Because it was,
yeah,
because it's County Administrator Vermillion, that was the first project she worked on when she came to Scott County as an engineer, was to rebuild the road that they just built. That was
and
too
then the
small.
connection to
Yeah.
Texas through Savage.
Yeah,
was The big,
but the connection to 35 makes sense with the paragraph that you wrote there.
I don't think I changed it.
Well, and I obviously I-35 has been there since what, the 60s, but if we say
Mhm.
maybe I-35 has allowed for quick access, and that gets you kind of the
Yeah.
past tense thing.
I like that.
Splitting hairs here, but
Yeah, you know what? I think the photos are fine.
okay.
Yeah, I like the pictures.
Yeah. Okay. What about the school district page? Anybody have any comments on that page?
I had just 2 small typo things that relate to her.
What about the recreational
One quick
activities?
second.
Yeah, sorry, Abe.
I was pretty confused when I saw the pictures. To me, it seems like they're backwards. It seemed, the way I read a magazine or a newspaper, I would think you'd want the Prior Lake School up on top and the Lincoln on top.
Actually, the
Actually, that
picture
is
is
Prior
Prior
Lake
Lake High
School on
School.
top, and it says Lakeville.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, you just need to change the logos.
Yep,
Yeah, so if you swap the logos, Liza, I think you'll, the pictures are fine.
We'll put that. in
Yeah,
the
good
typo.
catch. I'll be honest, I didn't pay attention
I
to those
was
pictures.
saying, wait a
I just looked at
minute.
them.
Yeah.
Watch out, Prior Lake.
Yes.
The history one, could we throw something in there about, or add to it? Some of the families that settled, help settle Credit River still have.
Residing,
have
yeah.
relatives residing in the
Credit River,
Credit River.
yeah.
Well, let's not miss any of them though.
Well, I don't know if we name
Well,
them.
I just.
We don't name
Oh, so
them.
we're not gonna name.
No.
No.
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Shows the heritage.
Mhm.
So several of the original families which settled Credit River have descendants that still live here.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Mr. Mayor, could you use like a term like legacy farms or something like that? A lot of that.
They don't all necessarily live on farms though.
Not anymore, not all.
No.
There are some that actually still, the farms are still.
One, yeah, two,
Three.
yeah.
Then we have to start naming them.
Yeah,
All right, well,
I think we're better off with the statement that Mark could. come up with
Somebody will be
first.
mad because their great uncle came or something and they didn't get there.
You can't include everybody, right?
Right.
Pretty soon you have a list of 1,800 families on there. All right. Recreational activities, talk about the parks, anything in there?
Mr. Mayor, just the signature sentence, one paragraph above the bottom there are 4 local park facilities. And if you say local, you might include Cleary and Murphy Hanrahan. So what if we say 4 city-owned park facilities?
Yeah,
Neighborhood park.
for city neighborhood parks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Okay, anything else with the recreational activities?
Or snowmobile trail that or snowmobile club runs through.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's,
the administrator's gonna have to deal with it, so they should know it's there.
Well, most of it's on parkland
Right. Right.
anyways, on Three Rivers Parkland.
That runs through
The-
private property too.
Yeah,
So,
the trail net, we're just reading through the things in the park.
You want to say and numerous snowmobile trails and just leave it generic like that?
Or you could say that snowmobile and bicycle trails.
Yeah, it does talk about trail network already, though.
True.
It read nice, I don't know, I didn't even change anything.
well, one thing about Murphy is you've got horse trails.
I don't know that it's the description here is intended to be all inclusive.
Well, we're talking mountain bikes and cross-country skiing.
Add equestrian.
Yeah,
To the trails.
So you got bicycling, hiking.
Maybe just a general activities. You know, the,
Multiple use.
I'm just trying to think, you could just have a sentence that says something like, inclusive to general activities such as biking, hiking, horseback riding, snowmobiling.
There you go.
yep. I'd put the
Something like
horse,
that,
I'd put the horse part in.
And that doesn't have to be included in
Really
either
important.
one of the park descriptions.
Right.
All right. Anybody have anything else for the recreational activity page? What about the position summary?
So just to provide some clarification, the position summary is generally a copy and paste over from the job description. So the changes that are made to the job description will
Okay,
insert in here.
so we probably don't need to. Unless somebody wants to sees anything they want changed now.
Looks good to me.
Okay. Desired attributes. So I had, let's see.
I did have a few changes. Do you want me to walk you through those?
Yeah,
And then I'll help kind of trigger your memory. All right, so the the 5th bullet down where it says has a thorough understanding of public works and infrastructure. We will add just a few extra words in there, as well as general construction processes and associated funding. That's just a little word change. 2 bullets down from there where we talk about is a visionary. Again, some word change in there. Is a visionary who can marshal activities to ensure the city maintains a rural feeling into the future.
mhm.
think somebody had raised a concern about the next bullet where it talks about is comfortable working with the Metropolitan Council on a comprehensive plan amendment, so we can chat about that.
And then that's a planning function, not necessarily an administrative function. That would be more in our contract planner to handle rather than an administrator.
And then the next bullet appreciates a small town rural environment and has the ability to connect with residents instead of adding the extra descriptive words in there, which I did appreciate hearing as I was meeting with each of you. So those were the changes that were brought to my attention.
I'm good with those.
Yeah, I don't know how we would find an administrator that would have the ability to talk about horses and farming practices with residents. I mean, I don't know if I could, and
I think though you should have somebody that understands the concept of that, though.
But I think,
We are still, we want to stay that way.
so read your sentence again, Liza, what you had proposed there, because I think you just said to talk.
Yes, appreciates a small town rural environment and has the ability to connect with residents.
That still has that.
I think the idea I heard from that is,
Mhm.
somebody that comes from, a rural background and yes, has worked in city administration,
Well, maybe
city
you should
management.
add to that, just it has the ability to connect with residents on rural issues. Or something like that.
What would be a rural issue?
Just think how much dust protection on the road, I mean, there's one.
Okay.
Horses on the road. Or, traffic like that, whether or not whether or not there's problems with, manure spreader stuff coming onto the roads or things like that, just you got a lot of different things. That, you have different kind of plowing, and then they're doing a little higher speed plowing and windrows and things like that, and there's more to it.
Yeah, most of that's engineering though, like the road stuff,
Mhm.
that's engineering, dust coating, that's more engineering and that, not necessarily to come up to the administrator on that point, that would be a referral off to engineering.
Okay,
Um,
but who makes the call to push it to engineering or whatever? I mean, that's gonna be.
Yeah.
Who takes the first call? Who's the one that?
Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate what you're both saying on that. I
Mhm.
think, certainly the administrator's not going to be one that's going to be out doing the dust coating, but I think having appreciation and at least
Mhm.
being aware of, the
that happens.
things that gravel streets.
Who takes the call and who actually sets the direction of the response?
I mean, just to be able to speak to the engineer, I will say I've learned an awful lot about gravel streets because I've not been in a city before that's had those, but it's a unique
Well,
thing.
Savage
for-
had them when you were there.
we had a motor grader and we paved most of those by the time that done, so except for the one going in.
Except for Murphy.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the administrator's not gonna be doing it, but having the knowledge or the background or ability to learn about exurban issues or however you want to say that.
Well, just appreciates a small town rural environment and has the ability to talk to residents. And originally the line was talk about horses and farming practices with residents. I don't know that there's anything really wrong with that statement to start with. But if we want to keep a rural, if our whole
Except
goal
that
is to
there's-
keep a rural feeling,
but there's-
then we should adjust it.
Less than 30% of the land is still in ag,
Right.
and the more and more that's disappearing,
Mhm.
especially as Feldman develops,
Right.
then there really isn't a lot of horses left. I mean, there's one public stable left and maybe 5 other parcels that have horses on them.
Yeah, but if there's one parcel, then that's important too. If the goal is to keep a rural feel. Then we should discuss and look at a future that includes a rural feel. That's the point I'm making. I don't know that you need to remove that from this. You have other things that cover other things. It's just, I think it's a good comment. Should probably stay. or be modified to be similar to what it is. Or what it says.
Could we just add on the end there while dealing with rural and suburban needs and issues?
Yeah, that's kind of what
That's
it,
really what.
That's really kind of, I mean, because it is the edge.
yeah, that's how
Leave
it
it.
started,
Yeah.
this whole thing on the bullet point.
So, I mean, just so they're aware of it and. One of us has to step up like I did with Mark. If there's any issues, just call up and I'll.
Right,
we'll see.
right.
Yeah,
As far as road issues or anything.
So
right.
Liza has the input. Liza, can you tell us what you got from all of that? And because you put these together, we don't, I mean, we're not the experts in terms of what's going to get somebody to apply and be good. So.
No, but I think it is excellent talking point in speaking with candidates, and we have been doing that, quite honestly. Last Friday, we were at a conference and already just talking about the exciting opportunity of getting to serve Credit River. And so those were one of the talking points that I used, was that this is a community that would prefer to have more of a rural feel. And yes, they understand and recognize development is coming their way, but the idea is to try and keep it the rolling topography, the large residential lots, the appreciation for horse trails and the like. So I guess what I got from it was appreciates a small town, rural environment, and has the ability to connect with residents on rural and suburban needs and issues. So if you feel that's a good compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I'll go with it.
I like it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, is there
Is
anything?
there one more?
Yeah,
We talked a little bit about why this is a little bit unique in the fact that, you're kind of building it from the ground up. Do
mhm.
we want to have something in there, a desired attribute of having the ability or the desire to kind of create a lot of the infrastructure, not infrastructure from roads and that.
But from a management standpoint,
Yeah,
really, yeah, process and management standpoint.
right. So I
Yeah.
think that's a big thing.
Well, I mean, that's the main function, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the need.
But it's kind of
Mhm.
creating it. It's not stepping into
Right.
something that already has it.
Right.
So ability to create and develop best practices for a new organization, a municipal organization.
Or a growing. Growing, because it's not new. I mean, being the city's new, but the organization's been here since 1858, so.
I like growing.
The roots are here, yeah, we're just
Mhm.
the next step. Okay.
Transforming.
Yeah.
For a new
And
transforming.
growing kind of explains transforming, doesn't it?
Well, yes and no, I don't think you want to just have growth, but I mean, part
Yeah.
of the difference is we're transforming from a a large urban township or rural urban township to really kind of a small,
Suburban edge.
a small suburban edge city,
Mhm.
which has a lot of the things. I mean, that's what we're looking for, is we're really looking for somebody that can manage that process of some of the changes, the adaptations.
The structure.
The structure.
The structure of the
present
process.
structure to them,
Yeah.
right? Develop it.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what it should say. I think somewhere in there, it should just cover that statement, but in one sentence.
So again, I think,
Read back.
yep, to summarize what I heard is having the ability and the desire to create and develop best practices for a growing municipal organization. And that would be your number one bullet.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything else in the desired attributes section? Goals and projects.
So again, there I can kind of run through some of the changes that were submitted and then see if that triggers any further commentary. So if you go to your 5th and 6th bullet point, where it speaks specifically about developing code and amending the comprehensive plan, there was some question as far as whether that should be included in there, because that mainly falls in the hands of the planner.
Mhm.
I think my comment would be, I think the city administrator still would like to know that these are some of the goals and projects that the city is working for, but perhaps maybe as a compromise, do we somehow include language that says in partnership or in working with the planner, develop zoning code for the city to allow control over future development?
Well, I think we spent 3 years doing that. I don't know that there's any additional zoning code that we have upcoming. Brent, Leroy, you were a part of that.
Maybe amending it.
I mean, there's always amending is gonna happen all the time, right? But
We've
the-
got zoning already developed. We did that
Yeah.
when we took over planning and zoning.
Yeah, we started that
That
from
could
2017
probably,
to twenty
that
twenty.
bullet point could probably come out.
Is it maybe more, less about zoning code and more about ordinances?
Right.
I mean.
Well, but again, I think the ordinances will always be an evolving piece as things come up, right? So I mean, I think that's a given. I
Well,
feel
we-
like that's a given, right? I mean,
Yep.
Mark, do you feel like as an administrator in your past that being a part of always evolving ordinance book is,
That's a given. I mean, you're gonna have to adopt something to go with THC gummies or,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. There's always new laws that come up on that. So whoever you get for the position is going to have to
yeah,
be able to know how to research, how to find what other cities or what the league is recommending, and then
Mhm.
bring them back to you as the council, as the policymakers, to decide whether that's what you want to do here.
so when I look at this section, it's titled goals and projects, right? Almost feels like this is like things that are happening or like upcoming, like imminent things, right? And so then I think of what's in there, and I think of that piece. That feels like always an evolving, both of them really, zoning and ordinances will always be an evolving piece.
Well, we had ordinances and policies under desired attributes, the second one. Experience in setting up new ordinances and policies.
Okay.
So we're assuming that we need somebody that has that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've covered, maybe we've covered that.
I mean, it's probably not a big deal, so it's details, we're probably splitting hairs on this one, but it's, it just seems like when it's under goals and projects, like this is something that's happening imminently. When we know that it's kind of an ongoing anyways.
I mean, I think the other ones are up to speed on the history,
Mhm.
level of trust with the council members, point person, city hall construction project. Yep. But we've got a zoning code.
Yeah,
Well, maybe you change it to work with planning commission to develop.
well, I don't think develops the right word, I think, if you want to have something, it would be something with the, ongoing evolution or, things like that, because we're not developing anything. Because that zoning code's developed already.
Right, I think you're looking at probably the wrong thing when we say developing a zoning code versus ordinances, development ordinances and things like that, which we actually already agreed that we kind of need. That we're short on right now for, development of some of the projects that are gonna come in the northern part. So, that, there's nothing wrong, I think, to me, in saying something, work with planning commission to develop ordinances to control development or something like that, because that's actually important and that's kind of what we're looking for. Zoning code, yeah, I think it's just maybe we're actually talking about the wrong thing, because you have a zoning code.
And we
So
have-
you don't need it.
And with the ordinance,
So just
ordinance follow as well.
Yeah, but the ordinance, we all agree, we need some.
Yeah, I think to that point a little bit. We've seen a lot of the crowd on the
Mhm.
northern half, right? And this person, I think, should know walking in that there is future growth and it's a topic
deal
of
with it.
high concern for residents,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, the future development certainly is definitely an upcoming
Yeah,
thing, right? But I don't know that there's. Because again, maybe there's some adjustments to the zoning and the ordinance regarding that, but I don't think there's any. Big major development in that. I think, maybe we focus more on the future development piece.
Yeah, that's what I think we should.
Right,
Right.
right.
And
That's-
we have that on the last one. Plan the next phases of the ranch territory and future residential developments.
Yeah.
So we're covering that there. So
Yeah, I
we-
think the ranch and the territory though are different.
They are.
Right, but it also says and future residential developments, which would encompass
Anything
everything
else?
other.
Yeah,
I mean, we have the ranch and territory because we know that we're going to have additional phases.
right.
Yes, your candidates reading that aren't going to know what the ranch and what the
Right.
territories are. I'm wondering if it would better just say, plan the next phases of existing and future residential
Yes.
developments.
Yep, I like
Yeah,
that.
because it's also missing one of them that's ongoing to Terra Farms, so.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense, Mark. Yeah.
Get that.
All right, so we are striking the developed zoning code for the city. We're striking that all together. Understanding that this position will still work on existing and future residential developments. Is
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
think if
hearing.
you're, Mr. Mayor, if you're
Mhm.
going to keep, we're gonna change the one on the second to the bottom,
Yeah,
then you could just pull that one out
Mhm.
and then just amend the bottom one so that you're dealing, because otherwise you're kind of dealing with the same, the statement's about the
it
same.
is. Yeah,
We should be talking about, we really are talking about future developments and
Ms. Mayor, and on
Yes,
the
Mark.
very bottom one that talks about develop a plan for the first time cleaning up holding ponds, I think probably develop a plan with the city
Ongoing.
engineer to develop plans for
ongoing
maintenance,
maintenance.
maintenance of city infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because you've got
Yeah,
streets, you've got holding ponds, you've got, trail systems, you've got the county ditch for in the Credit River. There's a number of things that
yeah.
they're gonna have to be involved with,
It's not specific to holding ponds, that's
Yep.
for sure.
but certainly enough to keep people busy. Let's put it that way. So ongoing maintenance of city infrastructure. Can you read that?
Yes.
Okay.
And, okay, so completely changing the final bullet point, say work with city engineer on ongoing maintenance of city infrastructure.
Yep.
Okay. And then going back up to the middle of the page where the bullet is, work with the Metropolitan Council to amend the comprehensive plan. I think again, that my question comes in, do we want to add perhaps verbiage that says in partnership or in working with the city planner?
Yeah, I think we'd have to, because that's definitely a planner item more than administrative.
But the administrator will need to be involved with that.
Mhm.
So.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else in the goals or projects section? Anybody have any thoughts on?
yeah, actually, I like that next one. Down from that where. Work with the consulting city engineer on long-term infrastructure planning, including water, streets, sewer and maintenance thereof. And then ensure the new development pace for new infrastructure. I do like that. We should keep that in there.
It's always been.
Yeah.
Development pays for itself.
Yeah.
So now that you've read that, I'm
Right.
wondering if we need to have the bottom one. 'cause
I know, right? It's the same double stop. So you probably
No, I think, actually, I think that's a little different. The bottom one, are you talking about? second from the
Infrastructure.
Bottom? or
No,
the
bottom. Remember, we just
I think-
amended that one.
I
to
think
be-
I would leave it as amended. Just leave it. It doesn't hurt to say that one twice. Or nearabouts.
But it actually says it in more detail in the one we just looked at.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Correct.
And we can add the word ongoing before the.
Wait,
word
is
maintenance.
your goal to shorten this or just
no,
add
just,
further?
I think concise, but
yeah,
so. Ongoing, what do you say?
So adding to that same bullet, work with a consulting engineer, the word maintenance there, just add the word ongoing before it, so then it kind of
Ongoing,
mhm, captures.
then you can scratch the bottom, people okay with that?
Yep.
yeah. All right, we good with goals and projects?
I guess,
Yeah,
Oh.
just one more.
Yeah,
Bullet point number 4. Are we that close to saying 2024? In that last statement there, plan construction is set for 2024.
I think right now we
we
are.
gotta do
We gotta do
something.
something pretty quick or we'll have to park the snowplow at everybody's house.
How about planned rather than set?
Hey, maybe, yeah. I mean, I think we would make that a little more flexible than what it is, but because we don't have something in stone at this time.
Right.
So I think maybe making that term a little more flexible.
Planned construction is set for 24, 25.
In the near future. That way that we don't have it to a specific year. If it happened,
That'd be better.
hopefully it happens soon, but because to that point, it's. We run out of time with our,
Pretty quick.
plow contractor at some point.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
there's one other item I don't think that we're covering that we might want to discuss adding to this.
Okay.
Even though we're not going to have a police department or fire department, we still have contract negotiations, you still have the administration of that. We're not really covering that anywhere in here.
But these are goals and projects, I think more specific is,
Okay.
was that covered? Do we cover that though in our position description? That would be more in the position description, right? They do administrate. Negotiate and administrate contracts with vendors.
So, but I think we're kind of missing that in here. So
Well, but if
where
you-
is it coming up?
If you look at scope of responsibility, it does say and public safety.
Okay,
So that would cover
Fire and
fire,
police.
police.
would it be smart to just say we don't have those actual departments, but they would need to, just so that it just, because it's it's a little unique.
So.
Well, we don't have public works either.
We don't.
I wonder if on that, we need to add.
Man in a truck. That's public works.
You got
Yeah,
your
we
shovel
could
in
have-
your truck now?
You could do man in a truck.
Man race.
Chainsaw.
Contract.
Fuller.
Yeah.
Man.
Uh-huh.
We engineer.
Hey, I'm taking care of the corner down there.
Fire. And then
That's a valid point. Just looking at the next page, as you go through the organizational chart. You've got the wing that talks about contractors, engineer, planner, building inspector. You want to add police and.
Police and fire,
Public safety and fire,
yeah,
because that's a valid point. We need to. Know that we do have those services here. It's just that.
Yeah.
Not provided
They're
by
not
the city
under our-
specifically.
right.
mhm.
That would call it out in the organization or in the org chart, yeah.
Well, I guess down farther below, you say city contracts with Scott County for its public safety, and
Mhm.
city of Prior Lake for that.
Fire services.
I don't know, maybe you're covering it there a little bit, but.
But I think it's fair to add it to the org chart.
Right,
I think the one comment that I had at in the rest of that description of the org chart was as you got my note on the planner, correct? The only comment in there, the city planner is excellent getting back to residents. I think we need, just like the engineer, that should be called out as a contract staff.
yeah,
Yes, I did add the contract city
Okay.
planner is excellent at getting back to residents, and then added an additional sentence that somebody had forwarded to me. And has taken the city through the transition from county planning to conducting its own
There you
planning.
go. Yeah,
And then kind of similar to the city engineer, remove the name of the engineer and just added again, the contract city
Perfect.
engineer.
yeah.
And then remove the name of Metro West and replace that with a private contractor.
Okay. For building inspections.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there anything else in the organization section anybody has any comment on?
Looks good.
No? Okay. Dominique, I suspect that you provided the numbers for the budget.
I did.
Cool.
Still AA plus, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And then the final page, the position announcement, again, it's some copy and pasting from the job description and details on how to apply. So any changes that we make to the timeline, we'll make those changes here. And then salary, if that's changed, we'll also make those changes as well. So does that mean you're ready to move on to job description?
I think so. You guys all good with this one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
So with the job description, I was forwarded a draft of it and I took a peek at it. And just made a few changes where. Where I thought maybe there was the language kind of doubled up. Or there was a reference to that task already further into the job description, so I moved it just to make it more concise, but then I also added a couple of items too that I thought maybe might have been missing. And just like something really minor, right at the top, it lists the salary. You usually don't find the salary embedded in the job description because the job description itself will stay fairly stagnant throughout the years. The salary will actually change. So I just removed that. But I think if you have a color copy, you'll see redlined and then you also see yellow highlighted where new language was proposed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or make any changes that you see.
anybody?
That was great. The only
Yeah.
thing I saw was literally a typo, which was first page, second to last bullet. While the last bullet above the red line of education instead of educate. Yep.
Next page, you've got
Okay,
Elijah, can you just comment? I mean, you do a lot of these. I mean, are we asking for anything that's above or below what's the standard is for a city of our size?
No, I did not. No, I thought the job description was really well written. I know that it was, very specific to what you envision this position to be. Just added a few very generic items just because, it is pretty typical to, for instance, under knowledge, skills and abilities, adding language in there that this person should have knowledge of modern policies and practices of public administration and municipal finance. So just some very generic language, if you will. So no, I did not see anything unusual and no, I thought it was good.
perfect.
Right, so then as noted, then we will clean up the job description and then we'll copy and paste the appropriate sections within the profile. But on our website, you'll see the profile, you'll see the job description as a separate document and then a clickable link to submit your application for the process.
Okay.
So the next item is talking about the salary. I know that was a topic of interest. So the information that was supplied to me was based, I think, on a study and information that you had found from last year. Proposed.
The Minnesota Cities does a survey of dozens of job descriptions, and they have it broken down by size of the city and things like that. So I wasn't involved with this, but so I understand last year when that was looked at, you came up with a salary at that time of 106 to 130. And we'll talk later. The budget committees looked at what 2023 would be, and with inflation and things like that, the recommendation is to increase the ranges by 5%. If that's the case, And that would get you to 111,300 to 136,500. At that point, then I'll turn it to our expert here in terms of she's advertised elsewhere. How would that compete with some of the other cities of Credit River size?
All right, so just to provide some background, it's more than just comparing yourself to other communities too. We all know that it's been a challenging hiring market, if you will, over this last year. I'm still feeling that very strong as of right now. So I think my initial concern when I saw the salary range 106 to 130, I started trying to find similar cities that I think, in my mind is like Scandia, for instance, and Corcoran. They too do not want to be a metropolis. They want to maintain their large rural. They don't want development to come into their community. So I found that there is very similar aspects to each of your communities. So Scandia currently right now is advertising their range is 110 to 130. And then Corcoran last year we advertised for, they posted their city administrator position at 114, 223 to 140. So again, that was last year. And in our work last year, we, called every single assistant city administrator in the metro area just to see, hey, this is a great entry level. This would be a great place for you to get your feet wet. And the feedback we received was, well, I make more than what that range is. So I wanted to provide that feedback to you. I know already in some of our initial conversations with potential candidates and getting everybody excited about it, there's been some comment about, well, all right, thanks. It sounds wonderful, but the salary range would not make me move. So I don't like telling you that because it's not fun to hear. But it's still challenging right now. I am not getting the quality or the quantity of candidates I used to get. I'm doing more repostings because at the end of the day, we are not getting the quantity or the quality. Or by the time we get to interview day, those candidates start to withdraw. And so I'm sharing and bearing my, heartfelt issues. So in fact, right now I'm working on 5 projects, searches, this one being one of those 5, and the remainder are all reposting. And I know it's not
reposting because no candidates came forward, no appropriate candidates came forward, or
that, and by the time we got to the interview day, the quality candidates were withdrawing.
Sure.
So that's
either they got hired or decided that they didn't want to make a move.
correct. And I know I am not the only one. We received an email a couple of weeks ago from a competitor asking, can we all just sit in on a Zoom meeting and let's talk about what can we do to start moving this around? So I know this is not unique to what I'm experiencing, but I know our other organizations are experiencing that too. But I also like to say, that's where you have an opportunity here to talk about, this is again, a unique organization. I loved how you all talked about, we don't have to do what other cities do. So if we can talk about the organization itself, that this doesn't have to be a standard model, how you run your office, how you have open city hall hours. That could be different. Where the work is done could be done differently. Maybe those are some of our talking points. And in our communications, that's something that we'd share in addition to all the other great things.
Mr. Mayor, could we leave this more as a point of negotiation at some point, or do you advise against that? If you start high, you're not going to come down. If you start a little lower, whatever, and somebody says, hey, I am interested in the job, but I'm not interested in salary, that opens up a place where you can actually look at it. We have other costs besides just this that we're going to be looking at. You got retirement, you got healthcare, you got everything else that goes on top of this. And probably at some point you're looking at a vehicle for the person to drive around and or who knows, or the cost of that. So, this is when we put this down here at 106 to 130, we're actually talking about considerably more to start with. And then you kind of look at the scope of what we're actually doing. They're not administering large departments of anything. We don't have a parks department. We don't have a fire department. We don't have a police department. and we have roads and bridges. We just really have we have a township on steroids of what we're doing. And there should be, I'm trying to figure out the scope that actually hits that larger, that larger cost for the person. And I know that, I don't know, we should ask Mark how he feels about it, because actually Mark's doing a lot of these things. He understands. I'd be interested in his opinion on that. I'm just thinking, I'm not sure that I want to jump and spend a lot of money out in front. We'll see who we can attract and then maybe see at some point if we can, maybe we give some ability for them to talk about an escalation of the lower salary for somebody that's a qualified candidate that maybe needs some negotiation versus just going out and advertising it. I'll just end my caboose right there.
Yeah, it's a good thought, Jay. I think the hard part being,
You only get
If
a
you're-
chance to
right,
press once.
yeah,
Which
and
is,
you might turn off some of the right people and not even get to the negotiation piece.
Right.
If you're too
Because
low
they
in
won't
range,
apply.
right,
Right.
if they don't believe that there's
so
an
that's the hazard.
opportunity, right, that's
Yeah.
the piece that you have to be careful of, and
Yeah.
the other piece. I know you say we don't have large departments to administer and manage, sometimes it's actually harder,
Correct.
because then it's now who's gonna do this, right?
And we're having them try to create some of this. So
Right.
You're looking for a different,
Yeah.
you're looking for a
I
unique
think-
candidate.
I get that.
And that
I think
red
that's the
one
number
might be
one
worth
question Mark calls me for is. Who takes care of the couch on the side of the road?
Right.
That'll be
Who's gonna
me
take care of
tomorrow.
this two?
That'll be me tomorrow morning.
Yeah, who's gonna take care of the rock chips on the gravel road?
Right.
Well, Leroy's out snowmobiling. Who
Yeah.
does it now? So sometimes that can actually be harder,
Right.
not having if you have a department, then it's you pick up the phone, Brent. It's the public works guy, Brent, take care of this, right?
Right.
So there is some,
Right.
it's not all just real simple because that
No,
stuff's not
it's
here.
not.
And
It's
then
difficult.
again, back to the piece of work, those are some of the processes and pieces that need to be put in.
Right.
To
So-
be planned,
So
you know?
I kind of started, I was
Mhm.
asking for Mark's opinion, I think.
Yeah,
Because Mark's kind of a unique position here. He's temporary, but he's helping us set stuff up and he's, and he's got a lot of experience.
well, he's been in organizations that are larger.
Right, both.
Yeah.
So,
And thank you for that. I mean, you've got all had some valid points on this. Certainly, Credit River has. They don't have large departments. They do, we have to contract right now. I mean. You're fortunate to have people that have been on the council, on the town board. That have the connections that can do the things that normally a city administrator or public works director would do. I'm going to guess at some point, you're going to say, I've had enough fun. We need to hand this off. And that's really what you're looking for now, somebody who has that skill set. This is not something that someone with a freshly minted master's degree from Hamlin University is going to excel at. They're going
Right.
to ideally have been in another organization that knows there's a policy for that, or there's an ordinance for that. And how do I find where that is, and has the connections to talk to the league or talk to scale members or things like that to help create that here in Credit River. There are many things that, whoever comes here, they're going to have to, I mean, as palatial as this building is, they're going to need to know that there's something else out there, and we're going to have to plan for that and hit the ground running as far as, when you do decide to do a city hall, how's that going to be done? So you're going to have somebody with some experience on those things. It's been a great organization. I mean, I've had a great time and I've had a lot of support, and I really appreciate that, but you really need to have somebody who's got more energy and a longer term vision on moving this ahead. As far as the salary, one of the things that you need to keep in mind as a public sector employer is that we need to be open and transparent on everything. And if we in our mind are thinking, well, we would pay up to 140,000, but we don't advertise it up to 140, you might have missed some good candidates who otherwise would have said, well, geez, I would have known that. I would have put my hat in the ring.
Mhm.
So you do need to come up with something that you think is realistic. You may not need to hire all the way to the top. You may have an internal hiring up to, the
Mhm.
half or third step or whatever you end up doing on that. But I think you also need to be prepared that as Liza has said, it's a tough market out there. I've talked with others who have been through the process, and it's, I can remember a time when I was one of 180 candidates. You're not going to get that now. So if you can get a dozen or half dozen who are qualified, as realtors say, it just takes one.
Right.
But the question is, how do you get them through the door and here? So I don't know if that helped or not. But
It did. I-
Brent.
So I see the city of Dayton is posting right now for an administrator, 7,000 people. They're I think 145 to 165 is their range. We probably would want to be there, but Liza, you're the person that's going to have the initial contact. You're the person that's going to talk this up. Where do you think we need to be to get the right person? And
Well,
I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot, but you're doing this all the time. Tell us what you think it's going to take so that we get a good, at least a few candidates to choose from.
so in my pools, I am seeing candidates who have not done city administration before. That's not what I used to see. I mean, I've been doing this for over 5 years, specifically in this role. So with that, we're competing against the private sector. We're competing against ourselves, because I think that's also why I'm losing. I know that's why I'm losing candidates. Once an organization hears that one of their own is leaving, then there's stay packages. So now we're competing against our own peers. So where do I think that you need to be? I mean, you need to be where you feel comfortable, and to your concern and what he had mentioned as well, the range is the range represents, if you are just coming out of school and you've never been a city administrator, you can expect no negotiation. You're at the bottom of the scale. If you're somewhere midpoint, you'll be in the midpoint. The point of the high end is to show, if you're here for long enough, this is where you have room to grow. So those that have worked in public administration, they understand that's what a scale looks like. So if they're currently making 135, well, then they don't have much room to grow once they're in this position. So you answer to your taxpayers, you have to be the ones that have to feel comfortable with the range. And like I'd mentioned, Corcoran last year at 114 to 140, we ourselves advertised for that one, and we just didn't get the kind of candidates that we thought we would get, because it is a very desirable area of it's just like here, you're close enough, but yet you have this beautiful landscape and this feeling of being out in the country and having your horses and having trails that they were fortunate to have an internal candidate, and that's who they chose. So I'm not giving you a number. Just saying, it's really up to you to how far you can push it, but it does make me nervous. You're not going to get the experience and even just firsthand in talking to potential candidates already to talk to them about how exciting this will be. Just the number, right, is as it's presented, the 106 to 130 did not get anybody to go, ooh.
Okay. Abe, you
What's
look
in the budget? What did we put in the budget for 23?
We based it off 120,000, but we know it's not
A full
gonna
year.
start, so we put it like around 80. So that would be, I think we were guessing around
Mhm.
May, sometime June start. So like midpoint. Not at bottom. So it was 128,000 divided by 12 multiplied by 8.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, what would our all-in cost be, budgeted cost for the person,
Oh, benefits and everything.
benefits and everything?
we have to.
It
You've
just-
got Harry,
Yeah,
yes,
pieces that
Yeah.
we don't have, because the piece that we don't have an exact number on yet is the health insurance benefits, because we can't until we get.
Right.
We can't get that for sure estimate until we get some pieces, somebody in the.
we have,
Um,
I'm sorry. we have benefits and salary and therefore hiring at about 120. When we get to the work session, we're going to talk about, we've got a number of different pockets
Mhm.
and we've got some flexibility within those pockets to move it around. So if you get someone that's going to be higher than what you anticipate, we've got flexibility on that, but there's a number of things that you have to figure in there. There's education, there's car allowance, there's training, there's
That's what I'm
memberships,
asking,
that sort of
That-
thing. So
just to see what.
we've tried
that
to
real number
anticipate
is,
those.
or the estimated number is.
The
Right.
last thing I want to run into is we run this so low that we don't get the pool. And then we have to repost it again. And it's I mean, Mark has really spoiled us because every question we've asked, we've got a good answer, and
Right.
we
Mhm.
trust all of those years of past experience. And we're not going to find someone that has experienced everything that Mark has had, but my concern is if we put it in low, we have to go back out again. At some point, Mark is going to say, you know, it's been great here, but I would like to be done before the end of 2023. And we have to respect Mark's needs and his goals, and he doesn't want to be here all year. We'd like to have him here all year, but he doesn't want to be here all year. So I think we need to go in with a number that's going to work to get to the bottom line where we need to be. And I know these sound like an awful lot of money, but if that's what the other cities are paying, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities here, but so you're saying to your family, you know, I think I'm going to take this job in Credit River. Let's drive by and see where I'm going to be working. Okay, so there's pluses and minuses. But I'd rather go through and do it right the first time and get somebody in here and have someone so that they can coordinate all of the activities that need to be done for Credit River.
What's your thought?
Well,
Get us started with the number. You're the auctioneer.
yeah, well, okay, we could do that. I think we're probably looking at anywhere from probably 120 to 145.
I think we need to touch 150 at the top of the
Okay, well,
range.
150
Of
would be
the
good too.
range.
All right.
Well, Dayton is at 145 to 165. They have 7,000 people, and there's a lot of people that the administrator can delegate to. There's not too many people to delegate to here. You're doing a lot of it yourself. You're writing news releases. You're going to every meeting, and you know, your staff meeting is with the direct reports, but there's nobody to do for the direct reports even to delegate anything to right now.
Yeah,
Well, we're also not telling them that the infrastructure is pumping the holding tank multiple times.
so this building here.
Um,
So again, back to just because you don't have a lot of staff doesn't make it any easier.
no, No.
Same work, just
Uh,
less people to do it.
I guess my opinion would be. Yeah, we might need to look at a higher range, but you know, maybe we'll keep the low range where it is, just in case we do get somebody, you know.
Yeah, so let's think about that. So
Less
that's a good thought process. Good thought there, Jay. Liza, when you were setting ranges, is there a recommended gap between there? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? If we move the top, do you move the bottom? In your experience, what's the best practice on that piece?
Generally, yes, if you move the top, then you move the bottom as well.
Mhm.
Goodness.
But you don't have you don't see a traditional spread there. You just kind of wherever the group sets it at, huh?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it comes into a whole formula and you're doing pay equity. And then,
Yeah.
yes, you will end up having to have a range that's in tune with the rest of your staff. So that has yet to come. So where you end up, that's the consequence of having a higher range for this position, then that will
Mhm.
naturally have to trickle down to your other positions as well. I mean, I don't know, trying to think, typically, do you see 20? Yep,
Well, just a comment, if we did talk earlier about possibly getting somebody who's much fresher. And, that possibly could be made to work too, especially if we're not getting somebody on the other end of it. So do you really want to jack the rate for somebody that's really has less experience and less more that is going to put a little more work equity into their thing and look for the range to go up as they get more experienced here.
But the other side of that though, Jay, is if you don't feel comfortable with the person who is on the bottom end, you don't have to hire that person.
I'm not
either.
saying that we're uncomfortable with them.
No,
She
no,
also
I'm saying
said,
that,
I mean, she also said you're getting more responses from people who are not typical city administrators and things like that. And, there could be some really good people out there that are smart, good managers, et cetera, that might fall into the position well. I mean, we do offer it. This is an opportunity to do something a little bit different. I don't know what Mark would have to say about that, but.
I think this would be, if you went to, for example, 106, keeping it at the low end, but then bumping it up to 145, that's about a 27% gap, which is a little wider than normal, but that would give you more flexibility within that. We'd have to figure out, what a step says somebody, is it 5 years to get to the top? Is it 8? Is it
Right.
3? That sort of thing.
right.
That's
I
my
mean, it's
point.
27%. I don't think
I've
that's probably unheard of.
seen it no, I've seen it as high as 30%, but 20 is.
Okay, and I mean, what about the concept of 106 to 145 or whatever with a hiring range to 130 or
Yeah.
just letting them know that there's room to grow after that, but we're not looking at hiring at the top range right now.
Right.
That gets you,
Unless there's something truly unique.
narrows that up. Leroy's suggestion 116 for the bottom.
Okay.
I don't know.
That would move you more into that 20-25% gap if we go to 150 at the top.
Well, what is it, 25? I mean, what from where are you looking at setting the top at?
I think we would be 150.
All right, so if you set it 150, what is the 25 gap? Is it
145.
or
If you're
145?
160, if my math is correct, I went to public school in Iowa, so
Right,
so
You can count beans, but.
that I can do. I think it'd be 160 to 145. So that sounds
Yeah,
about right.
And then I like the words that used hiring range of up to
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
pick a number.
Up to 150.
that's above what you're looking at.
yeah, it is.
I was gonna suggest like mid-range
Oh,
in there, so like up to 130.
say that again.
No, advertise your range from 116 to 145, but then hiring range to 116 to 130, depending on qualifications. And that would give the candidates some flexibility,
Mhm.
and maybe that's when you negotiate, maybe move it to the next step after 6 months or
Right.
rather than after a year or whatever with the traditional one might be an annual review and evaluation.
Mr. Mayor, I'm seeing our consultant nod her head, yes. So,
Yes,
in
I've-
agreement to that.
Seen that used in a couple other communities, and I think it does set a nice, I mean, the expectations are laid out there. I have room to grow, but now I know where my cap is. So I think that'll work nicely.
Okay.
Well, we could have potential candidates watching this right now.
Sure.
Mhm.
Or later.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is their thought process,
Yeah. Okay. Good with that.
So.
So I heard 116 to 145 with a hiring range up to 130.
Yep.
You're okay with that?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, and then the last piece is just the timeline. So in your packet, you had a timeline for the search. The dates that are highlighted in yellow are the dates that I was hoping you had a chance to take a look at your calendar. You're going to be able to participate in those meetings. We're here on January 30th, so you've got 2 dates down and 2 more to go. So the next date I would need for you to be in your chairs is on March 20th. That's where you'll help me select your finalists that you're interested in meeting face to face. And then interviews are tentatively scheduled for April 10th. Once you approve the schedule tonight, this is the timeline that we operate on. This is what goes in our advertisements. These are the reminders that we keep issuing out to our candidates as well, so they know to put it on their calendars.
Well, I know what I'll be doing on my birthday.
So March 20th would be our second meeting in March.
Yep.
Okay, so that would just, so that.
So it's just a selection for the finalists at that
Right,
point. Yes,
absolutely. And then we have a special meeting on April 10th, okay?
correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm taking. Oh. There you go.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
I've got that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's those 2 dates that we need to make sure.
Yep.
Leroy, does that work for you?
It will,
Okay,
I'll come back,
Should we send you a calendar invite?
I'll come back in Wyoming, yes.
Yeah,
Okay. So I don't know if you want to do a formal approval and then I could just talk you through what the rest of this process will look like, or if you'd want me to talk about that now, I can do that as well.
well, I think we can go ahead and approve the profile and the description. Was there anything else we need to approve besides that? That encompasses it all, right?
Profile, job description, timeline, and salary range.
Profile, description, salary, and schedule. Perfect. So we take Mark,
You just want to remind them the process is in terms of, okay, right now you'll cast the net, you'll have it out there for a month. Then what happens and how do you keep them informed as to what's going on?
Do you want me to tackle that now, or do you want to do your approval?
let's do the
first?
approval on
Okay.
what we've gotten so far, and then we'll come back and then we'll finish that piece out. So at this point, unless anybody has any other questions or comments, I'll take a motion to approve the position profile, the job description, the salary, and the hiring schedule for the Credit River City Administrator.
So moved.
Motion by Jay,
Yes.
second,
second by Brent. I've got a motion and a second to approve the position profile, the job description, the salary range, and the hiring schedule for the Credit River City Administrator. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. All right, Liza, back to you then.
All right, so the real work begins tomorrow. So we'll make the changes in house and then we'll get going on our advertising. So from here on out, you'll receive a weekly update from me. So one of your first updates, you'll receive a pretty long list of all the venues where we're advertising. I like to keep you up to date. I like to let you know how many applicants have submitted their interests, what maybe my conversations have been like with candidates. So you're kind of just in the know. That's also your direct access to me too. So if you have questions or concerns, you can certainly call me or email me. The posting period is from January 31st through February 28th. So once the posting closes, then I screen the applicants. I'll review the applicants to make sure they meet the minimum qualifications, but I'm also looking for evidence that they meet some of those desired attributes that you talked about tonight. Looking to see if have they either lived or worked in a rural setting so that they have that basic understanding. So those are just some of the things that I will be looking for, as well as evidence that maybe they've touched on some of the projects you've got coming down the pipeline. Once I select those applicants, then we have them complete a personality index as well as video interviews and an information disclosure question. So just for you all listening, information disclosure, that allows the candidates to air any potential red flags that we might find in their backgrounding. It really says a lot about the candidates if they can just own it. That doesn't happen very often, so I don't want to scare you in that manner. The work personality index, really, it's an online testing tool that just asks series of questions kind of in varied ways, but it helps them see what maybe their work personality traits are like. If they're strong in leadership or sales potential, that would be important if you're needing more of an economic development position. The video interviews are what I've heard are some of the most favorite parts of our process. So candidates will receive 5 questions. In the comfort of their home, they'll have a clickable link. There'll be a question that'll pop up on the screen, and they have about 60 seconds to formulate their thoughts, and then the camera just goes on. So they really have an opportunity to show what their personality traits are like, how they think on their feet. And obviously they have to use that time to show or prove that they have what it takes to do the job. So 1 week before we come together on that March 20th date that we talked about, then I'll send all this information. It's considered to be non-public private information. They'll have access to it. So in the comfort of their home, they can click on all of that. So when we come together on March 20th, I'll ask each of them individually. All right, Councilmember Lawrence, who are you interested in meeting? Through that, we'll figure out a democratic process on how or who we want to extend invitations for the interviews on April 10th. Then once you select your 3 to 5 finalists, then we'll start our backgrounding. So then we'll do the credit history. We'll look at their criminal records. They generally don't have them, driving records. We go into all of that. But one of my other favorite parts of this process is the personal references side. So we do ask for current and former supervisors, and I spend a good 40 to 45 minutes talking to those supervisors and asking, okay, what are they doing in their current role that would apply to this specific role? Ask about their leadership style, ask about how they handle conflict when a resident or a customer is yelling in their face. How do they deal with conflict when they're working with a board that may not all agree on, how to move forward with a process? So you'll receive a long narrative of that conversation as well as all the background information 1 week before your April 10th interviews. So when you walk in here, you'll have a really good feel for who your candidates are. Your April 10th. So when I come on March 20th, you also help me design what you want your interview day to look like. I did put a few ideas in your memo that I had forwarded to you last week. So ideas that, and every city does it different. So you can have everything from, just some informal staff time, or maybe there's just coffee and they get to have a little back and forth. Or if you'd rather have them have more of a grilling, hard interview, your staff can engage in that as well. I've listed an open house with your community, city tour, and then the piece that we always have is the full council interview. So that's where they're sitting here and you're facing them for 45 minutes, asking them 17 to 18 questions. After they wrap that up, then I share any feedback of those stakeholders that you've involved in the process. And then you go right into discussion and deliberation. You are able to make your decision that day because you've had a lot of information at your fingertips.
So,
Brent.
so on April 10th, we have the special meeting and we do the interviews. That will be partly a daytime function, right? I mean, we're not going to be able to do all of those starting at 6 p.m.
Right, correct.
So what would a possible starting time be?
So depending on how involved you want to be as a council, say you don't want to be a part of the staff, or, if you have some type of meet and greet, you just only want to be there for your 45 minutes, then, 45 minutes times 3 to 5 candidates, that would be your commitment for the day. But if you want to be involved in providing a walking tour, a driving tour, then your time is.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking for when would all 5 of us have to be there to do the interviewing? What would be a possible starting time?
Yep.
Just
So
people can get it on their calendar.
yes. So I typically start those interviews in the afternoon. So early to mid-afternoon, depending on how many candidates you have.
Are these individual or this as a whole?
Individual. Well, all of us as a whole with
So
the
we need to
individual.
also-
Mhm.
But again, that's part of our flexibility, yet that she's asking us to think about the possible types of ways we'd like to do this interview process.
Mhm.
So That's not something we need to decide tonight, but.
But I think
definitely
in
look at
terms
it.
of people's calendars, we should probably plan on being available on the tenth after
Noon,
1:30
Afternoon.
noon. Okay.
Yeah, for right now, yeah.
Okay,
just in case maybe perhaps you want to do some type of luncheon. I would leave the noon hour attached as well.
okay.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure everyone,
Sure.
I mean, I know it's good for Leroy, but
Unless there's a big snowstorm.
Yeah,
You never know.
even then,
and,
just has to make the phone call.
and that'll be an open meeting, right? So we would probably,
That was my point.
that was your point.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes.
Yes. So it would be, wouldn't it?
Mr. Mayor,
We can work
Council-
on those pieces, but.
Yeah, and we are going to have to, because if you're going to have multiple candidates here and you're interviewing, there's not a lot of privacy in this building, so
Yeah.
that's when we may want to look at the Prior Lake Fire Station or another locale for that, if you want me to start nosing around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Right, so that's my process. I work through the negotiation piece, so once you've made your decision as a council, typically there's a negotiation committee that you'll appoint to work with me. You'll lay out the terms, the working terms for me to work with the candidate. There'll be a little bit of back and forth. We use the League of Minnesota Cities, we use their employment agreement. We can modify it to meet your needs, but that's the working document and the talking points that we use in the negotiation process. So offer an agreement hopefully is approved by April 17th, and that person is in the chair by May.
perfect. Do you have any questions on this timeline?
I hope we get the right candidates so that we can actually follow it and we
Yeah.
have to repost.
Right.
Absolutely.
And Liza does too. She doesn't want to do it twice. And Mark does too.
He'd like to go on his vacation.
Right?
Yes.
Perfect. All right,
Anything else?
anything else, Liza? You good? All right, anybody else have any questions for Liza or anything? No? With that, then I think we don't have any claims to approve tonight. That was used the template of the agenda and didn't remove that piece. So at that point, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Abe.
I'll second.
Thank you, Leroy. A motion and a second to adjourn the Monday, January 30th special council meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?